What's up, everyone? I'm Jared Harris, and you're listening to episode 46 of Beats by Jer. Today, I am very excited to be joined by Masha Alekhina, a political activist, poet, author, and member of the performative art punk rock alt collective Pussy Riot. As a part of Pussy Riot and as an individual, Masha, a Russian citizen, is a prolific voice against injustice with a history of speaking out against authoritarian leadership, specifically standing up for the rights of women, the environment, LGBTQ communities, and the marginalized under the rule of Vladimir Putin and the Russian Orthodox Church. The band has gained international notoriety due to their guerrilla performance tactics that have seen them perform on the rooftop of the Moscow Special Detention Center in protest of the arrest of Alexei Navalny, Ilya Yashin, and Peter Verzilov, as well as performing the song Mother of God Chase Putin Away at the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow, and, more recently, having staged similar pop-up performances in America against censorship and anti-abortion legislation. Masha has been arrested on multiple occasions, all stemming from actions taken in protests, and in 2022, she was left with no choice but to escape from her home country as a political refugee. In addition to her political work, Masha's 2017 book, Riot Days, has recently evolved into a live experience, wrapping up a Canadian tour earlier this year with a European tour coming this summer. Following this, Masha plans to release her follow-up book this fall. Here is my conversation with Masha Alekhina. Masha Alekhina, thank you so much for joining me today for the Spill Magazine and Beats by Jer.
Thank you.
So congrats on the continued success of Pussy Riot, the recent touring experience of Riot Days. That's continuing through the summer. And you guys are just continuing to take aim politically at global injustice. All the work you do is very exciting.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you.
Before we get into the politics of it all, I'm curious about the band as a musical entity from the musical side of things. Pussy Riot is often described as performance art, but began more as a punk band. Can you reflect on the punk origins of Pussy Riot?
For me, punk is a way of life, and we are not the band, and I don't think that we are performance art group or whatever. We are political art collective, and it's bigger than what you saw in Riot Days. It's more than 20 people there, and I mean, I joined Pussy Riot in the beginning of 2012, actually in the end of 2011, when they were a small group in Moscow, and we did Riot Days. Sorry, not the Red Square action, Putin
Mm-hmm.
Peace Suspense, and then the Punk Prayer, and then actually the world knew about us because three of us been imprisoned and two of us got 2 years of penal colony. So since that time, uh, 11 years passed, and actually more. Yeah, like 12. Um, so we continued to do street actions, street protest actions. Uh, and also, we started to fight for prisoners' rights and created the first court journalism in Russia, like a media called Media Zona. I received a second criminal case, spent year and a half under house arrest, been beaten, imprisoned to detention centers 6 times, blocked from the like Russian bank system, had travel bans, a lot of things. But I think it's important to understand that we are all like different people came from different, let's say, areas to stand against Putin's dictatorship and for feminist issues, because in Russia there is different situation. We have different background from, I know, Canada and US, and actually there was no, let's say, big feminist movement.
Mm,
There was kind of, something in the beginning of 20th century, which was quite strong and loud. But then after the Soviet Union, like after the revolution of 1917 in several years, that was shut it down
okay,
by the
interesting.
same people who won the who won the revolution. Yeah, uh, and for the whole century, uh, there was completely different situation than in the West. We
Mm,
didn't have any sexual revolution at 60s, no hippies, uh, no flowers. There was different backgrounds, and I think Putin is proud of this background, and we are not. So I think it's super important for the world, but for Russia especially, to have women's voices in their position.
absolutely. You have touched on so many different things that I have notes on. There's so much, like, your story is very inspiring, like everything that you have gone through, everything that you continue to do despite all of that. It's fascinating, and it's a really unique case study about art and politics. Um, earlier you said that punk rock is a way of life. I also read somewhere that you had previously said that you are not a musician at all, right?
I'm not a musician at all. I mean,
But
you
you make
that
music, you perform music, and you use it as a political vehicle. Could you expand on this idea of not seeing yourself as a musician?
I'm not a musician. I mean, I just I am not. Uh, and uh, well, as I said before, we came from different fields. For example, the Riot Days, which you saw now, uh, there are three of us from Pussy Riot, and there were also two guys from Cole and Martin from the support band who were super great. Uh, I mean, Alina, for example, she's a professional musician. She's a violin player, but finished conservatory. She, I mean, she plays academic music and also an ambient. And
Mm,
Tasso is a professional actress who also finished the best university of acting in Moscow. Uh, I can write texts, and well, I feel kind of letters, but I definitely not a musician.
mm,
It's how can I be on the stage with the musical performance? I don't know. I mean, I for me it's important to tell this story. For me, it's important to give this message and to hear how people feel it, how they react. Because I honestly I believe that our story can be kind of useful as an example, because I don't think that it's something special with Russia or with Russian people. This can happen anywhere. I mean, political repressions, imprisonments, shutting down of human rights. And we have this horrible experience of witnessing the war which our country started. And I don't think that any of us being prepared for that.
mm,
So it's it's important for us to give this to people. Also, like 12 years ago, there was, I mean, none of us couldn't imagine that, for example, rainbow flag would be an extremist symbol, and you can be imprisoned for that for like 5 years.
Hmm.
Because, like, really, people were definitely not allowed to be married or to have a gay parade, but there was no kind of imprisonment and criminal cases. And now we have them. So to
When
be
did
gay,
when did that become like criminalized in Russia?
2023.
Wow. Okay.
Well, the first law, so-called law against gay propaganda, being written in 2013, and that was announced as a law for protection of kids.
Mm.
So, a law against gay propaganda for kids.
Okay.
10 years after they made it, like, for everyone.
Mm.
But in 2013, there was no issue to, imprison people for being gay.
Okay.
Also, there are several regions in the south of Russia who don't give a fuck about a law because they are special. It's a Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia, and there you can be kidnapped and killed. And there were materials, if you're interested in these topics. There was a big, you know, uh, scandal and issue in 2017 when one of the journalists, Elena Milashina, found the secret gay prisons where people been tortured and killed for being gays, and that was all organized by the private army of Ramzan Kadyrov, the head
Mm.
of Chechnya region.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so there are a lot of aspects, let's say,
Yeah, for
of
sure.
Russian reality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, like there's so many things in my notes that we're touching on and moving on from, so I want to make sure that we get it all. Um, I have like two more questions about the music of Pussy Riot before we go like right into the politics. Um, the last couple of releases you guys have done, you've transitioned more towards an electronic sort of alternative pop sound. Um, why? Why this musical shift?
Which releases?
Hang on, I have to pull up the name of it. I was specifically thinking of I think we're going back to 2017.
I think it's
The
Nadia.
Matriarchy Now. Oh, sorry, 2022. The Matriarchy Now album. Very sort of like electronic alternative pop sound to it.
I think we should like separate because mostly, I mean, the music which you can find on the music platforms is Nadia, who
Mm,
moved to US like several years ago,
okay.
and she did a lot of music in English, and our two anti-war songs you can find on YouTube. Uh, so yeah, this is her music.
Ah, I see. Okay. Okay. Um, in that case, are there plans for more music from the collective that you guys are working on currently, or plans to get together and make more records?
Yeah, we want. We want. We have some plans and we'll publish it.
Sweet. Now let's start looking at Pussy Riot as the political entity that it is. Going back to the formation, back when you joined in 2011, why a band? Obviously, you're so politically engaged, politically like fired up. Why did you guys as a group think that the best route to signal change was through forming a band as opposed to other channels?
I was an ecological activist when I joined Pussy Riot, so I had a small experience of organizing small demonstrations, and that's it. Uh, there was a moment when Putin announced that he will be a president for the third time, It was September of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. So there were massive protests. So there were hundreds, thousands people who been disagreed to have him again, and I think I was one of these persons. And my best friend, who actually sing the punk prayer, my best friend that time, uh, let's call her anonymous member
Mm-hmm.
because she did not appear with a name. So she was in the Pussy Riot from the very beginning, and all the recordings were at her apartment. So she showed me one of the actions, one of the street actions which they did in the roofs of trolley buses and in the Moscow subway, and I loved it. I loved it because uh, okay, it was like this. I mean, I had these demonstrations, and people there who came there, they mostly were not from the art field. And also, I was studying literature, so all my friends from the university never spoke politics.
Mm.
And at this uh, collective, I found both, and I really felt and saw that you can and how you can combine art and politics,
Mm-hmm.
and that was cool.
Yeah, it's
So
super cool.
that's why I joined, and that's why I kind of decided that I want to learn more about how it works, how I mean, yeah, how it works. Because I mean, I think all the methods of protest are cool. There is no bad method. You feel you need to do something, you do something. It's already super good. But I think I was kind of I wanted something more, just uh, something more than organize the demonstrations where people have just banners and speeches. I wanted I
Mm-hmm.
want to
Okay.
learn new. That's what I actually want all my life. I want to learn something new. Uh,
That's a fantastic outlook.
that's how it happened. But there were so many so different people with so different views, political views, who were standing together. I have no idea how they were standing together, how we all were standing together uh, at this year, just mm, do not make this third term happen. And
Hmm.
actually, I think that time Putin been really afraid because he didn't expect so many people were standing against him. And unfortunately, this third term became kind of point of no return for our country because he annexed Crimea, he started the war, massive imprisonments started, our case happened, a bunch of like repressive laws were written, including the one which I mentioned before, the gay propaganda thing. So they started to search for an enemy separating people. Uh, yeah,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
this.
I'm curious, what sort of events, what type of events were you organizing before Pussy Riot?
I was fighting for. I was ecological activist, and I also did not expect it because I just actually I was a student and young mother, and I had a break between lectures, and I found that my favorite forest will be cut for building a villa for one official, for actually for wife of one official.
Mm.
And I wanted to stop it because I really love this place and it's unique place. It should be like protected by UNESCO, for my opinion, because it's the only one
Yeah.
like this in Russia. So I just wrote down two addresses of two organizations and took my backpack and went there. In first, they said we cannot do anything, and in second one, the guy said you should collect 5,000 signatures. Then you came back. Then you come back. So I started to collect signatures, and months after I came back, he didn't expect it. So
Mm-hmm.
he said like, okay, we'll bring it to administration of president, but you can organize a demonstration. I can teach you how to do it. So he started to teach me. I started to like, collect people. Then I found people who were care about the same place in other cities of Russia. Then we started to do demonstrations together and kind of coordinate. And then we started to do it every week. And then, like, step by step,
Yeah.
I don't know. And yeah, it was like this. And then, like 10 years after, they gave a status to this place, just prevent cutting.
Oh, amazing.
Amazing, but 10 years.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I think that was kind of a lesson for me how the system works. Because before I don't know, I was a girl with books. I didn't know. Okay, I was kind of a rebel girl with books, but anyway, I just start to question myself about the system, and I had small child, so I think I already had kind of um, feelings and thought about the social system in Russia, which is like horrible,
Mm-hmm.
hypocritic and horrible. So they were as they still are, uh, calling women to give birth, and for women have about $50 per month from the government, which is like not enough even for one
That's
shopping.
nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing. So it's hypocritic, horrible system, and I think, yeah, and I just had all these thoughts in my head, but I started to like collect them together, and that's how it started.
That's great. I think it just goes back to what you said, like any political action that you want to take can have an impact for change, for an impact for positivity, and that's fantastic. Um, Tell me about the name Pussy Riot. What does Pussy Riot mean to you?
Now, well, it's part of my life, I
Hmm.
think, and I like that it's it's a combination of feminine spirit with the riot spirit, which
Mm.
I kind of both have somehow. And yeah, I mean, this is again when you born and when you grow up in the country where it's not it's not, let's say, popular for women to protest.
Mm.
you want to not feel alone. You want to be heard. I mean, this like common general things. And I think I found it at this name.
Cool. Cool. I think the fact that it has a controversial ring to it speaks to the issues at hand of women's rights and femininity.
The funny fact that, I don't know, so many people are pronouncing it, and Putin is kind of ashamed to say it, and he's not ashamed, to kill hundreds of thousands of people, but with Pussy he has problems.
Mm, mm. Um, on the Pussy Riot website, there's a tab that reads classic actions, where it details some of like the almost like the greatest hits of things that your collective has achieved, things that you've done, stances that you've taken. Are there any like some of these classic actions that you have been a part of that you felt really stood out and were really impactful?
I don't think that I'm a person who can count my impact. It's not me who should do that.
Okay,
I can just do things, and I don't know, if someone will hear and feel it, it will be great.
I like that. Um, is there like a one of those sort of protests that really stood out to you though, that we can talk about in a bit more detail?
There are a lot of, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to choose.
Okay, that's fair. Let's talk about Riot Days. So Riot Days started as a book that you wrote.
Mm, right, this is a book. Yes.
Yeah. And now it is like a touring performative experience. How has Riot Days come to be? How has it evolved?
Well, with the help of um, people who helped me, and I think I should mention Olga Borisova, who is editor of Right Days, also Pussy Riot member. Uh, I wrote a book, and I didn't know will it be published or not. And we decided with Sasha Chiparukin, whom you saw on the stage, that we will bring the book to the stage somehow
Mm,
in 2017. And then the Penguin Books, like the biggest publishing house in Great Britain, said that they want the book. So it's all happened in one period. But we combined the music and cut the text of the book, and that was first version of Riot Days. And then years were passing, and we were changing the show all the time, like cutting, a lot of cutting, and putting the current events to the middle. So there is one, for example, scene when you can see the current political prisoners. And before the full-scale invasion, we were raising money for the families of Russian political prisoners.
mm,
Each time we were or taking the merchandise of someone, some group, or just giving money from our t-shirts. And then when the full-scale war started, we again changed the show. We wrote the anti-war song, and we started to help Okhmadit Hospital, which is a children's hospital in Ukraine, in Kiev. And we managed to raise around 200,000 euros,
Wow.
dollars,
Yeah.
euros, in 3 years. And then I visited this hospital, and now I think from this tour we will help the another hospital which is in Dnipro. Uh yeah, so now the show looks completely different because we prolong it with the material from the second book, which will be published this autumn, also in Penguin.
Cool. Cool. You recently wrapped up a Canadian tour of Riot Days a couple months ago, and this was the first international set of dates, correct?
Uh, no, we've been in Canada in 2024. It was
Okay.
smaller, but it
Okay.
was. And also, we've been in US in 2023 and 2017. But each time, I mean, the show changes, so people don't see the similar thing because we each time we put there what is important.
Cool. Cool. Um, and if I'm correct, you have more tours scheduled for this year.
The European tour will start on 17th of June. It will
Nice.
be
Nice.
Germany, Netherlands. Yep.
Cool. Cool. Um, It sounds like a really cool live experience, like tying in all these different aspects of what you've done musically, uh, through the book, through literature, and like, just the protests, the political element of it as well. And it's amazing that you're supporting so many different causes that are in need of support.
Thank you. We're trying to
Uh,
do what we can.
can we talk about your experience of escaping Russia?
Okay, we can.
Okay. As you've discussed, there's a great deal of contributing factors. You've spent your life fighting against the government. You've been imprisoned. You've dedicated so much of your art, your ability to standing up to injustice. I'm curious as to what was the moment that you felt that you had to actually leave Russia.
No moment. No moment. I didn't want to go.
Okay.
Uh, I just, I wanted to help Ukraine because I strongly believe that this country should survive this war.
Hmm.
Because, and I strongly believe that the world should like help and to stand like with army forces with Ukraine. Because if this country will lose the war, or, you know, some kind of, I mean, if these territories will be officially given to Russia, which are now occupied, they will go further.
Hmm.
And then if they will take Ukraine, other countries will be attacked.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, I think this is an international issue.
Absolutely.
And the horror which we kind of saw, felt, heard inside our country will just spread into the world. Because this is a nightmare what is going on in the occupied territories. There are torture prisons, there are literally concentration camps, because I'm in contact with with lawyers inside the country, with like, different people. And there are literally concentration camps, and there are dozens, like more than 10,000 Ukrainians kept there, tortured without like any status. They're like, do not exist officially.
Hmm. That's
And
terrifying.
yes, this is horrible. And I just feel it as something personal. And I mean, I was born in Russia, but we don't, we do not choose where we will be born. But somehow, I mean, I want something different for the history of my country. I want, something different to stay in the history. I want people who will be after us, like our children, to know that we were trying at least to stop this regime, to stop Putin, to aware the world that is dangerous, that is the biggest country in the European continent, which is aggressive, and the so-called leader of which is trying to fuck up the whole continent.
Hmm.
This is like this.
Hmm.
So, and with my personality, with my kind of, for what I already did, they were arresting me for just walking the street. So other people, first months of the war, I spent in detention center, and all of the people who've been arrested for the small political demonstrations were arrested for the demonstrations. I was arrested just for being myself.
Hmm.
So for me, there was like, there are actually three options in Russia. You can be imprisoned, you can leave, or you can shut up. For me, even like, I physically cannot shut up. But even like shutting up would not work because they I am kind of dangerous for just being myself
Hmm.
because of all these years of, making problems for them. So I decided to go and to perform and to do what we're doing now. And because the apartment was surrounded by the political police, we have this department called Center E, Center Against Extremism. I dressed like uh, a delivery girl.
And that's how you escaped?
Yes, I managed to not be seen by political police because I was like dressed as a courier.
Wow. Okay. Oh, there's a lot to unpack there, with what's going on in the state, the desire for change, the optimism for a future alongside the reality of it all. Wow, that's a lot. Um, as a Canadian, I have a very outside perspective, right? I don't have an inside perspective to what's going on in the country, to the political climate. You've talked about a lot about violations of human rights, extreme incarceration, silencing protests, movements, things like that. Um, I'm curious about the average citizen's thoughts about the ongoing war, because obviously your Russia is an aggressor and you've taken a stand about that. But do like the average people living in Russia, is there a feeling of disconnect with the government's actions and the wishes of the people?
There are more than 1 million people left the country only since the full-scale invasion.
Hmm.
But there were people who were living the country before, each time when the massive repressions happened. So it's actually a lot of people left the country. There are also a lot of people who do not agree, but they they remain silent because they will be imprisoned because it's like totalitarian
Mm,
regime. There are people who are actually imprisoned. Uh, there are people who died in prison, like Alexei Navalny, the loudest voice against current regime now. And there are other people, like a lot of them do not have even an access to the information because social media now works only with VPN. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube works only with VPN.
mm,
And I think there are kind of 10% of people who use it. So, and propaganda and all the TV, newspapers, uh, like biggest websites with news, all of them directly controlled by Kremlin.
mm.
Each day they call the West as an enemy. They creating this system of like foreign agents, unwanted organizations. So this is the climate. And if you don't know, if you are not experienced in the searching of the information, if you do not analyze what's going on, you can be just, you know, disinformed by propaganda. And I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, there's a lot to that as well.
Because, like, all these years, they were shutting down the independent resources and nobody cared. They were
mm,
shutting down demonstration, nobody cared. They were poisoning people, like literally killing oppositioners, like Boris Nemtsov, who was like shot near the Kremlin walls in the center of Moscow. Nobody cared.
mm,
No sanctions, no international scandals, nothing. And this is a result. And this is very sad result, but it's real.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, when we think about how it affects the people living there, like you've already discussed, uh, anti-LGBTQ laws, and there's the gender aspect as well. I'm certain, just like in it's just historically speaking, in regimes like this, there are particular groups that face like a much more challenging time than other groups as well.
It's very easy to create an easy enemy from LGBTQ
Mm,
because, like, they are equaling LGBTQ with the West, and they are saying like we are traditional country. We are not like all this gay Europa, gay West. So we'll protect our values and we will fight with the Nazis of the Western with the Western Nazis, etc., etc.
mm,
So this is how it works, and each like oppressive regime needs an enemy. It cannot exist without
you
an
have
enemy.
to unite the people against something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And for this something, you should choose the group,
Mm,
and this is the easiest one.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. Wow. Uh, I'm curious, what is the musical scene, the art scene, the different communities like in a state like this?
Everything is underground, and what do you mean, like how the LGBTQ community exists now in Russia?
No, like, well, sure, yeah, we could talk about that as well, but like, I just meant like where Pussy Riot is like this punk alternative band. You come from a system of oppression and you come from a place where you're very politically active. So, you obviously have these moments where you are performing against the state, but like there are people seeking to find a way to express themselves creatively through music, through art, whether making statements. And I'm just wondering, like, as a musician, like what do those musical communities look like in this state of oppression?
Different. The Well, now it's not like 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, not like 30 years ago.
Mm.
And when the Soviet Union, for example, was collapsing, and actually there was a time when I was born, there was amazing protest music scene, like really cool bands like Kino or Гражданская оборона, and there was like a culture of protest music, which just appeared as a flowers of changes, and actually
Mm.
changes was the main slogan of that time. People were millions of people, millions. There was like minority of like 2% who were having this resentment of bringing all back, but majority of the people wanted changes. And um there were a lot of like bands on the beginning of 2000s, and then step by step everything were like shut down. I mean, there are musicians, for example, who had a big scenes a big scene, a big, you know audience inside Russia, and they left the country after the full-scale invasion because they wanted to tend Ukraine. And these are, for example, not Pussy Riot, because we were always a protest, unpredictable thing. And
Hmm.
guys were uh, a bands or like a singers who had huge stadiums like Oxymiron or Монеточка or Noise MC, millions of followers, and sacrificed everything to speak out. Or I speak, for example. So, I mean, these names are the protest music names from Russia now. They exist. Um, those who stayed, well, you cannot perform anything political.
Mm.
You just cannot. The show will not happen. It
Yeah.
will be shut down several days before. You will be imprisoned. 100%.
Hmm. In such a political climate, do you believe that even if you're not, say, performing political music like you just said, in such a context, do you believe that
Maybe in the
all
kitchen. In the kitchen, you can do something.
Okay. But I mean, if you can't explicitly be a protest band, if you can't explicitly sing a song that goes against the state, um, do you believe, like, despite that, that all art is a political statement in one way or another?
I do believe. I think a lot of artists do not believe that somehow. A lot of musicians do not feel that they have a political voice.
Mm,
In the West, it's like this somehow.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I think once in the last 10 years at some point, I don't remember when I heard this, but Tom Morello once said that all music is a political statement. Um, and I
Yep.
think, hearing what I'm hearing from you about Russian social culture, just having the audacity to create in that environment seems like a brave action.
It will be really cool if the artists, including like musicians, will now wake up more and do more political
Mm.
in the.
Um,
It's very needed.
yeah, absolutely. Curious, given all that you have endured, have you ever considered making art, whether that be music or your writing, in a non-political way? Has that ever been an option that you've considered?
But it's also, I mean, the silence is also a choice.
Mm.
And it, I mean, your silence, if you choose silence, silence is also political. It's just political silence. uh it's you cannot be out of politics. This is just part of everything, of our life. And yeah, you cannot be out of that. Even if you kind of decide for yourself that I'm not talk about these issues, there is a decision of not talking about these issues, which is also a political decision.
Hmm. Hmm. It's a political decision that often favors the oppressor.
Y- you, yeah, you can call it like this, or you can, I don't know, its explanation will can be different, but
Mm.
my point is that you cannot stay silent. And uh yeah, I just think that artists have responsibility. And I'm so happy when I see, you know, artists doing political statements, like the guy from Imagine Dragons just recently was raising the Ukrainian flag. That was like really cool.
Hmm. Hmm. Um,
After 3 years of war, it's like really cool.
yeah, yeah. What power do you believe art, music, performance, creativity, uh, all of these aspects, what power do you believe these things have in instigating change?
What do you mean? What power?
Like how can music, the arts, creativity create change?
You have a microphone and people are listening to you. This is like a power.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I was when I was a teenager, I was like, searching for these voices, and I'm kind of happy that I found them, which I like mentioned before, from the perestroika time with collapse of Soviet Union. If those people would not exist, I would probably find something else which will influence me, and I would be probably the like another person.
Mm.
So, I mean, voices make change. And I mean, the choice just to have to entertain, also like make a choice that people are just like searching for the entertainment, and that's it. This is everything influence everything. And yeah, you
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. Who will listen to you. This is the thing. You just speak out and you don't know which ears will this come to.
I like that. Um, what words of advice, words of encouragement do you have for young aspiring activists?
Oi. I think just don't be shy. Don't criticize yourself too much,
Mm.
because people are, I think when they want to do something, it's a lot of, self-criticism, and sometimes it's a lot of fear, reflecting, etc., etc. There is no one right way to do activism. Each way is cool, really.
Um, Looking back on all that you've achieved, all you've faced, all you've overcome, when you look back at everything you've done with Pussy Riot as an independent, as an individual, are there things that you would do? Would you do it all again? And would you do anything differently?
Well, I definitely don't have any regrets for all the actions, and I just sometimes think I can do more, but that's what I'm trying to do now, like this.
I mean, that's all we can do, right? Is do more.
Hmm.
I really like that answer. Uh, as we bring this conversation to a close, I know that you have the European Riot Days tour coming up. You have a book scheduled for later this fall. Is there a release date for that book?
I don't know, just the fall.
Just the fall. Okay. Is there any other plans for this year?
Let's see.
Uh, the final question that I like to leave with all my guests. What are your three desert island records?
What? Did
I know it seems like a random question compared to this conversation we've had, but it is like a musical podcast. And I always ask my guests, like, if you were stuck on a desert island, what would be the three albums that you would want to be stuck with? Um, these could be albums that have inspired
uh-huh.
you politically, inspired you musically, things you listen to a lot. Like,
Mm, I like the second concert of Rachmaninoff, but this is classical music.
that's okay. That's awesome.
Uh, I mm, I don't know, maybe David Bowie.
Which one?
Mm, the most famous one with ground control to
Okay.
major tom.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe what else? Uh, Wait, it's a hard question. Uh, mm, Maybe Yanka Dягилева is a Russian singer. She's also from Perestroika.
Mm, cool. Cool. Uh, well, Masha, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me today for the Spill Magazine and Beats by Jer.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in for my conversation with Masha Alekhina. You can find out more about Pussy Riot and their global initiatives at pussyriot.love, and be sure to follow me on Spotify, YouTube, and the socials at Beats by Jer. In 2 weeks, tune in to hear my conversation with alternative rock innovators and icons Angelo Moore and Chris Dowd of Fishbone, ahead of the release of their new record, Stockholm Syndrome. I'm Jared Harris, and this is Beats by Jer.